everyone. It's Nicole Saratek with American Frontline Nurses back on Ask the Nurses podcast. And I wanted to bring on a very special guest, a good friend of mine, to talk about the transing of kids. Now, this guest his name is Buck Angel. He is an entrepreneur, an activist, a speaker, an educator, and he is one of the original trans people. I mean, we're talking Grandpa Trans. We call him Grandpa Trans or Tranpa because he's been a woman that transitioned to a female over 30 years ago. And he is going to talk to us about what is going on in this new woke trans community and the actual mental health crisis that is happening with our children because of the social contagion on social media with the transgender population. So I'm going to bring on Buck Angel. Hey, Buck.
Hi, Nicole. Great. Thanks for having me on. I do appreciate you a lot.
I'm just glad to show people that there are transgender people out there that are not coming for their kids and acting like weird on TikTok.
Awesome. No way. And yes, they do call me Trampa. 32 years I transitioned. I'm still a biological female. I transitioned to look like a man, right? But don't deny my biology, how these new people do. It's ridiculous behavior.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, okay, we're here for a medical situation, me and you. So that being said, if I denied my biology, I would be in big trouble. I wouldn't be probably sitting here right now. I'd be dead somewhere because I wasn't being honest about my biology and my health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because it kind of goes back to me thinking about, our routine health screening. So if you're a trans male, so you're biologically female, you still need to go and get, your pap smear to make sure you don't end up with cervical cancer. If you are a trans female, you're a biological male. If you still have your prostate, you should go get that checked. Okay. Because that can cause cancer. You could die.
That's
and I'm like, cancer doesn't care about what your mental issue is. It's going to come for you if you don't do your screenings.
I know. It's actually very scary to me as someone who's been advocating for health for my space for a long time. And I had what's called vaginal atrophy because I was one of the very first females to be put on long-term testosterone. And I was basically a guinea pig. My doctor even said that to me. I don't know what I'm doing. He was honest 32 years ago. I don't know what I'm doing, dude. Are you sure you want to do this? But, my mental health needed for me to do this. I'm a solid human being today, and I don't think I will ever look back on this situation. But that being said, you have to acknowledge these things in order to be a healthy human being. So the vaginal atrophy came because no one knew the hormonal imbalance that was going to I did a lot of research. Basically, I went through early menopause, but like early, and it just totally destroyed. I almost died because my cervix and my uterus fused together.
You ended up with a fistula?
And it popped, and I became septic. And they were like, dude, if you didn't come in the hospital like right now. So I'm coming in the hospital and I'm like sick, and they're like, what's wrong? And I knew they were going to see me as a man.
You're like, I think my vagina, something's wrong. And you totally look like an actual bio man.
Totally. They're like, what, dude? You're actually delirious. I'm like, no, I have a vagina. It was so funny. I mean, now I look back, it's funny, but I guess that's really my point here is that if we don't acknowledge, and I'm wondering why this new trans community has so many sort of like really disingenuous ways of coming at this. Why would a trans person want to deny their biology? I don't know.
I think accepting part of their biology is part of, accepting the mental health issue. It's like I have PTSD. So part of that is not like trying to say that this did not happen to me, the gang stalking from Team Halo and the Rainbow Mafia and everything like that. You have to acknowledge it and accept it as part of you and process it through your, however you're doing your therapy or whatnot. And it's like the same thing. If you don't acknowledge that, you're not going to heal and be your most authentic self, as they try to say. And I'm like, why do you want to be trapped in this vicious cycle?
Yeah. Well, I have a couple things. I'll tell you, like I said, I've been in this community a long time. It was never like this. If you
Mm-hmm.
notice, it never was like this. We've been around for a long time. I'm not the first transsexual man, nor will I be the
Mm-hmm.
last. But that being said, that's why I also want to let everybody know that I distinguish myself as a transsexual and not as transgender, because
Mm-hmm.
transsexual people are people who know their biology. We transition because we have a mental disorder called gender identity disorder. We got diagnosed. We go through a whole thing. We want to pass as men and women. So we want to walk the world with you. We don't want to be against you. We're this newer transgender space wants to be transgender. So if you see they want to identify as trans, we don't want to identify as trans. We want to identify as male and female.
Mm-hmm.
We have not what used to be called a sex change, right? But we know
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so I just want to distinguish so you'll be able to see as we have this discussion the difference between a person like myself and this newer space where they're saying all these things that make no sense to any of us and trying to do things to you and to
Mm-hmm.
me to shut us down so that we don't get this message to the young generation. I really feel like they're targeting a younger generation of people, which is good.
I think so. And we had this discussion backstage about like, we at American Frontline Nurses, our whole thing is advocacy and, making sure people get safe, equitable, and appropriate care. And we
Yeah.
don't care what you are or anything like that. I mean, like I said, we've worked with the ladyboys with the monkeypox outbreak. We deal with people with Rona.
Mm-hmm.
And most recently, we're dealing with the complications with the transgender kids. And it's just odd that all of a sudden all of these children are thinking like this and there's commonalities in it. They want to say, oh, autism, blah blah blah. Maybe it is, but we've started to screen them for like mental health issues. But the common denominators that we've always seen is they're in a public high school.
Mm-hmm.
They have access to a smartphone with no restrictions, and they have access to social media with no restrictions. Those are the key things that we see. And then there's other things too, where they don't have a strong religious connection or something to a higher power. I don't care if it's Jesus. I don't care if it's Buddha. It could be pagan. I don't care. You have to have some belief in a higher power. Almost all of them believe in atheism, that they just, when they die, it's over. There's nothing more for them.
That's right.
And, they all suffer from depression, anxiety, an inability to maintain or foster meaningful relationships. And we're not just talking boyfriend, girlfriend. We're talking that they can't even have friends. Like they can't maintain those relationships or engage in them. And that is very, very concerning. And I think it all goes back to the social media, because they isolate themselves and disassociate on social media rather than making those meaningful connections out in the community.
Totally agree with you. Again, I transitioned, right, 30 something years ago.
Way before the
smartphones. Thank the goddess. So that being said, I agree with you also about religion or something to that effect, right? If you don't, and also there's no humility with these kids. There's all entitlement. It's all me. They think the trans community can get you. Once you're trans, you get everything. There's this idea. And I'm like, first off, being trans is not fun. And then they're getting these tropes like, trans is euphoric, trans is fun, like, what are you talking about?
They're being fed a lie, because like these kids will, like, they thought, well, when I transitioned, I thought I would get better.
That's right.
But the underlying mental health issue was never addressed.
That's right.
It's like, if you have, like, if let's say you got a herniated disc or something like that in your spine, and we give you Vicodin or oxycodone for you, the underlying problem is still there.
That's right.
It's still there. And they think it's like a light switch. As soon as they get that first injection, they keep waiting. They keep waiting for it, like, oh, I'm going to get better. And they don't get better. And then it creates a spiral.
You hit it all right on the head, my friend, because I'm not sick after 32 years. The only thing, atrophy, but that was understandable because they really didn't understand the imbalance of hormones. But all of these young kids, and I was telling you backstage, there's a kid that was like, I have kidney failure after 2 years of being at this kid was putting a female to male like me, young kid, like 20, was putting on that gel 3 times a day. And his hormonal imbalance. He was like 4,000. I think his numbers were like 4,000. His testosterone levels, and I'm like, dude, you're gonna die of a heart attack. But instead, he got kidney failure, and he was just making it like very nonchalant. And by the way, I have kidney failure. Oh, are people hearing this? How can you give access to a drug? Testosterone is a drug. They get it so, like Planned Parenthood, I think we discussed that too.
Uh-huh.
You
They're
walk
giving
in,
it out.
they're
They're just
giving it
giving it
out.
out.
How is that legal? You as a nurse, I want to know how that's legal.
You know, it used to be where you just go in, do your donation, and get your birth control and stuff like that. You know, maybe do it like, and that the donation was optional. But then
Okay.
we discovered that they were segueing into the gender affirming care with the drugs. And I'm like, these
Yes.
drugs have to be monitored. I mean, great, you can go get your Depo shot, you can go get your pill pack or whatever for birth control. You're less likely to have an issue unless you decide to take your entire birth control pill pack or something like that.
Right.
But the testosterone, the anti-androgen blockers, you know, the estrogen, they all have, your levels have to be monitored so you don't
That's right.
reach what would be considered dangerous levels. Too much testosterone causes heart attacks,
That's right.
and a numerous amount of like cardiac issues. And as a flight nurse, I've seen this with the Thunder from Down Under guys up in Vegas.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
bro, we have flown out your entire trope here. Like, what's going on? Y'all need to back
Wow.
off these steroids.
Yeah, they're all steroided out. That's right. It looks nice, but no one really understands this you know, I was around bodybuilders early on. I learned a
Mhm.
lot about hormones through the bodybuilding,
Mhm.
but now it's different. You can go on the internet and you can actually do your research. But why would these kids do that? Why would they do it? And here, I'll tell you what, Nicole, sometimes I feel like I'm in a weird space because they see me and they want to achieve what I achieve, but they
But
don't
they don't
realize
wanna listen.
they don't want to listen, nor do they understand the long time it took to get to this space. Not only
Mhm.
that, I'm healthy. I eat. I don't drink. I don't do drugs. I work out. I monitor my health. You know, at 62,
Mhm.
I'm like almost perfect health. And
Yeah.
that's because but they're not. They're just slamming it like, and they say stuff like, I want to be roided out. I'm like, do you even, because it's so dangerous, Nicole. You watch. I hate to say it, but there is going to be so much sick young, so many of them sick mentally as well as physically in the long, and who's going to deal with this and who's going to take responsibility for it?
It you know, and that's the concerning part is because when they and because this is what happens. Most of the people that we're talking about are our children. There are
Yes.
some of the you know, maybe, you know, 20 to 30-year-olds, some of them are 40-year-olds that do this,
Yeah,
but a lot of the children in high school that are going through this, once they get out of high school, they realize that it was all just a bunch of bullshit.
that's right.
And then they move on to
That's right.
what their real life is going to be because high school is not real life.
That's right.
I mean, honestly, I think public school education is, you know, I've worked in a prison and I've gone to high school. I'm like, it's very similar.
Yeah, it is. It
So
is.
I'm just like, so once they get out of high school and they realize, like, I had a friend and her daughter thought maybe she was a lesbian, maybe she was trans, maybe she was
Mhm.
bi. And her mom's like, whoa, whoa, slow down.
Right on.
Let's just give it some time and let's see how you feel.
Great.
You know, and with that, they started to cut back on the social media. They started to cut back on the
Excellent.
smartphone. And, you know, 6 months later, her daughter's like, you know, mom, I think you were right. You're never going to hear teenagers say that.
No.
You know, and she's dating, she was never bisexual. She was never a lesbian.
That's
She's
right.
dating a boy, you know,
Yep.
she's a senior now, or maybe I think she graduated
Great.
and she's going on to a normal life. And you know, maybe she was a lesbian. Who cares?
Who
You know,
cares?
but
Yeah.
it's just like, give it some time. The hormones are like completely
That's
crazy. I mean, as at 41, I'm probably perimenopausal. I can tell
right.
you, I go fucking crazy all the time because
Of
my hormones
course.
are messed up.
It's
So
hormones.
yeah.
I'm still, you know, I still have to take my hormone to keep my levels balanced. When I'm lower on my testosterone, I can feel it, and
Mhm.
I've now balanced it out through exercise, through all of it,
Mhm.
injecting. I've been injecting forever, but I keep it at a very steady space, and it's why I
Mhm.
don't go crazy. But that being said, the same thing for me. I'm a biological female. The minute I started sticking testosterone, the estrogens started going away. No one told me if I would have put estrogen cream in the vaginal space, it would have probably prevented the atrophy. Now we
Mhm.
have all this information, right? But
And
I
they're not
still
telling
see
them.
none of the kids are being told. Not only that, they're coming to me. I'm not a doctor. And third, they won't believe me. They're like, that's not going to happen. And then when it happens 5 years down the road, they're just like, I don't know how this happened. And I'm thinking, what? I was a guinea pig for you kids. Like, at least you could acknowledge that and like take the information from what I did. But, you know, I'll tell you, in most cultures, they don't ostracize the elders, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. They sort of look at them as wisdomy, right?
Mhm.
So now
You
they're
know,
pushing it
throughout my
out.
travels, yeah, in the United States, we ship our elder off to nursing homes and rehab
It's so
centers and stuff
true.
like that. I'm 41 and they said, "Oh, well, you're old." And I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I can bench press 150 pounds. I can squat 150 pounds. Like, what are you
I
like, I'm
know,
a
it's
black
insane.
belt. Like, I'm
Insane.
not old." But
41.
that in the United States and a lot of first world countries,
Yeah.
I mean, with the exception of maybe Italy, but I think it is
Yeah.
changing.
Yeah.
We just push the elderly off, and they're of no value and no consequence. And
Yes.
I find that the greatest history lessons I've ever learned about American history were from the actual veterans I took care of,
Oh,
or like,
thank you. Thank
yeah.
you. Oh,
I mean, I took care of Desert Storm, soldiers,
wow.
Afghanistan soldiers, and it's like what they were
Wow.
telling you on the news was not what was going on with those soldiers. And I'm like, holy
No,
crap,
no.
or stuff like that. Like I'm pretty sure I had an ex like CIA spy one time because like he had dementia, and they're like all of a sudden like a team just came in and took him. I'm like, wait, he's got like, oh yeah, mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, they
Like,
did
if
not.
they say something, I had never it was like a freaking movie. But, just listening to those elders, it's like and it's really interesting because all the nonas on Instagram, they'll have
Yeah,
grandchildren that show them how to make like, they'll film them making pasta. You
that's
got this
right.
one Italian nona who's,
So
got,
cute.
like, 1,000,000 followers, and all she does is make pasta and
I
sauces, and I'm
love
just like,
it.
"Guys, there's a wealth of knowledge in these elderly
That's right.
that you are not listening to
No,
because we've been trained to devalue them." And I think that's why nobody wants to listen to you.
that's right.
And it's just because, like, as soon as I heard about you, I'm like, I think it was like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm just like, "Hey, my name's Nicole Saratek from American Frontline Nurses, and I got your
I
information, and we
know.
need to talk."
I
I'm
remember.
like, I needed to osmosis everything out of your brain because I'm
Uh,
like, you've been there, you've done that. Why reinvent the wheel if there's somebody here that already
yeah,
knows it?
that's how I know there's an agenda, because you don't do that, and you
Yeah,
don't do
let's
that
talk
in any
about this
culture.
agenda because you had an amazing idea that I'm just like, and all the dominoes just kind of toppled for me when you said it about the agenda.
Well, okay. So here's what I think, and everybody needs to understand that I don't have an agenda. My space here is to create a healthy community, which is
Mhm.
I've traveled the world over and over, speaking to many different cultures and many different people, and changing laws and helping people to move forward in their transition. This has always been a space for adults. Okay, this is an adult
Mhm.
only decision. Never did we have children. I have to tell you, we never transitioned children until maybe
Mhm.
the last 10 years that started coming into the space. Now, what I started to see was this idea that we don't need we don't need what they call gatekeeping, right? Which I call safekeeping. So basically, what they wanted to do was just open the door, because they said, if you're trans, you know you're trans. And I'm like, what? You don't know that unless you're going to mental health care. Then they took mental health care off the table. I had to go to
Mhm.
2 years strict hardcore therapy, walk the world as Buck. I didn't do any surgical space until 2 years of all this very, very strict regulations, which is so important in this space. You can't go back. This is not reversible. I'll never look like a lady again. Not that I was a lady, but you know what I mean? Like, never. And so how can you give this to a 12-year-old or even a 20-year-old? So I started going, this is scaring me. Then I started seeing young girls, the escalation of young girls, not young boys, but young girls, all of a sudden identifying as trans and getting what we call top surgery. So these are
Mhm.
20, 15-year olds all the way to 20, all going, I got top surgery. And that means, to the people out there, cutting their breasts off.
Mhm.
And I'm like, who are these doctors? I had to go through so much. I had to get a note, letters, and before I could even think about doing any of that. Thank God that happened. But that's when I started saying, wait a minute here. We are doing this to young girls because it actually was a 4,000% increase.
Mhm.
That's three zeros, 4,000% increase of young girls becoming trans and going to get their breasts cut off. I'm like, is anybody? That's when they started moving my voice out. Don't listen to Buck Angel.
Mhm.
Buck is a transphobe, calling me transphobic, I know it's insane. And I was like, what? And I got pushed out of the community for a long time. I had to sort of really sit with myself and say, do I just bail on this, Or do
I
I
know,
give an
right?
I mean, I was really hurt. I'm telling you, I had done so much work for the community, but then I just had to really sit with myself and be humiliated and humbled and say, no, if I save one kid from this, I'm here as that elder. And
Exactly.
that's so I started to see what's happening. Then I started to see where's this coming from? And I started to notice an increase in men who now I'm not talking about young boys, I'm talking about older
Men.
men, like 40 years old, 50, who've been married for 20 years, who have
Mhm.
kids, all identifying as trans and not making an effort to look like women. Some of them were, some of them weren't. Then we have a new gender, what's it called? Non-binary, where they're
Uh-huh.
and then they're men's with beards and saying they're women and entering the women's
They
restrooms.
taught us, like, because I have a master's in psychology, and I had to take a
Yeah.
sexual deviation course. Those
Okay.
were called transvestites
That's
or
right. Bam.
cross-dressers. It was a fetishism. I mean,
That's right.
we learned about splashing,
That's right. All
like,
of it.
all sorts of that
Yep.
stuff, and I'm
Yep.
just like, "Okay, whatever." Like, I even had a patient, in rural Nevada whose son was a cross-dresser, and, I
Yeah.
mean, he wore a floral dress and had acrylic nails, but he
So
rolled
what?
around with his hunting dog and a shotgun and with
Awesome.
his beard. I'm like, "Okay, whatever, bro."
Whatever,
You know,
dude.
because
Totally.
funny side story is my car broke down in the middle of nowhere, Nevada, as I was trying to go get to this town. And he picked me up, and I had never seen him before because he was kind of like embarrassed about it.
Uh-huh.
So he was never around when I went to go see his mom, who was like in her
Mm,
80s,
yeah.
and as a home health nurse. And he picked me up, and I'm like, oh, thanks so much, because I had medications with
Yeah.
me, temperature
Wow.
controlled and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And I get in the car, and he's wearing this floral sundress. He's got chest hair sticking out. He's got acrylic nails. He's got a beard. In between the two seats of the front of the truck is a shotgun. In the back seat is his hunting dog. And I'm just like, my fucking God, I think I'm going to die. And then I started to calm down, and I'm just like, okay, number one, I'm a black belt. So if anything goes down, I got this. And then number two, I'm like, oh, is your mom so-and-so? And he's like, oh, yeah, because
Right.
she was a super nice little lady from England.
Yeah.
She came over here years ago. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually going to go see her. Could you just take me directly there? Because I've got her infusion. He's like, oh, sure. And he was telling me about how his mom's doing. And, she's doing
Wow.
better with physical therapy. I'm like, okay. Okay. Because it's like, it was originally because you're just hitchhiking for miles and there's nobody, just
Totally.
that kind of thing.
Weirdos.
But yeah, those people were just cross dressers. It's what they did.
Right.
They didn't try and push anything on anyone.
Nope. Nope.
But now we see that they just go out there. Like there was something, I think it was a school board meeting or something like that. There's a guy in a bandage dress, looks like a total man in a bandage dress, and you can see his erection. And I'm
See?
just like,
That's disgusting.
yeah, why do you have an erection? Because I'm going to tell you, I've seen more privates than in general as a
Sure.
nurse, and I'm like, that's an erection. That's not.
He's aroused by being in women's clothing. That's you think I
Exactly.
get aroused by looking like? No, it's completely
I feel
not.
like it's a lot of work.
It has nothing to do with my sexuality or my fetishes or whatever you want. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You just made a great point. That dude was totally okay with being a cross-dresser and being a dude. He would never claim trans, and he would never say I'm a woman and want to go in the women's restroom. That's what I started to see. And I'm like,
Mhm.
wait a minute, we need to raise the alarm here. Something's wrong. And these trans women, I'm going to call them cross-dressers, are mean and nasty. Those are the ones who are coming after you. And do you know the
Yes.
terminology AGP?
What is that one?
It's autogynephilia. Okay.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
that's the new trans woman. These are not, I have a ton of trans women friends, right? They want to distance themselves from these people because it's not them. They look like you. They're just look like a lady. They can go in the
want
women's
to be
room.
like, hey, by the way, do you know I'm secretly a man? Like, no, they want to be a woman. They want to do 100% they're woman, and they don't talk
That's
about being a
right.
man.
Nope.
And maybe inside
Nope.
their inner circle or something
That's
like
right.
that, that kind of stuff. But
That's
they're
right.
not out there promoting that they still have a penis.
A penis. You think that anyone who has that dysphoria is going to promote that? No, that's what
No,
I'm
because
saying.
they
Yes,
want to be the opposite sex. They don't want people to know
that's
that they
right.
are whatever their biology is.
That's
That's
right.
how we were always taught about the
That's right.
transgenders, and that was the difference between
Yes,
the cross dressers and stuff like that, is
that's
the
right.
desire to be the opposite sex
And
and
nobody
to
know. and
Nobody
nobody
know about it.
knows it. And that's the whole where you can literally, I bet everyone now can crack it and see what I'm trying to say to you. Those people are not trans people. They are cross-dressers, fetishists, AGP. A lot of the men who are now doing it are married. A lot of them are married, have been married for 30 years, have
Mhm.
kids, and leave their whole family. I'm like, ew. I don't know. I think that there's something going on there, like that you're just gonna bail on your family and everything to become this lady and have lady boners in the women's room and take pictures of it. And it's just so
Yeah.
disturbing, and it's ruining everything for people like me. It is, because I get lumped into the weirdos
Into
now.
the crazies.
That's
That's
right.
why it's just like, because when
That's right.
people, they'll say like, "Oh, the crazy trans." I'm like, "Hey, those are the new trans. The old school
That's
trans,
right.
they're normal. Like, I know them."
We're not. That's why I said just transsexual.
Mhm.
That's why I really try to encourage people to use the word transsexual, even though they try to tell us it's derogatory and old, and they
Oh my
just,
god,
yeah,
they wanna cancel whatever term that they want. I
that's
mean,
right.
I somebody at work one time told me I was unprofessional for using the term diarrhea, and I'm like, "That's a medical term." Like, I mean, the guy had diarrhea, he was down 4,000 feet underground in the heat, he almost he was dehydrated with diarrhea, he should never have
Um,
gone underground, and I'm
wow,
just like, and I'm explaining the
wow.
situation, and they're like, "You're so unprofessional." I'm like, "Girl, I had to start a line on this guy." We call
My
it
God.
a line in a bag, which is people take it the wrong way.
Oh,
One time I was really dehydrated at work and I'm just like, dude, I need a line in a bag. And they're like, immediate drug test, immediate drug test.
totally.
Oh, in EMS, that's an
That's
IV and a
right.
liter of fluid. Like, it's no
Right.
drug test. My coworker who's a man, and then the secretary who had to do the standby assist. Like, they gotta be in the bathroom while you urinate and everything.
Yeah, right. Totally.
So, I mean, she wanted to, like, take me to HR because I used the word diarrhea, and I'm
Oh,
like,
come
I'm
on,
explaining to you the
people.
medical situation I walked in upon and had to save this guy. I'm like, "How am I, like,
I mean, people
what?"
have lost their mind. Well, it's gonna leave. It's, as you know, our political space. People are over the DEI, diversity, inclusion, whatever it's called, right? Like you have to
Yeah.
hire people because they're trans or they're whatever. I'm like, you know what? Don't you dare put trans people in. But now they're the one who pushed that agenda. The sports, women's sports. I'm fully against trans women and women. I was an athlete as a woman. You cannot. I'm fully against that. It is
And that was
sick.
something totally that was so bizarre because, like, when women wanted to participate in sports and they were trying to compete with the men and the men didn't want them, it's like, "Okay,
That's
so
right.
make your own women's leagues and do your women things."
There you
And
go.
so now the trans people want to integrate into women's sports as if they're biological female. I'm like, "Yo, guys, just make your own trans
That's
sports. Do
you
your own thing." Like, do your like, what's I mean, because that's how I look at it. Like, I mean,
yeah.
if I don't have a niche over here, if I can't fit in with this or that, I'm gonna make
That's
my
right.
own.
That's right.
And, why don't you just make your own trans, like, Olympics, your own trans, like,
Guess why?
cycling or swimming or
Agenda.
whatever, and
It's
you
an
can make
agenda.
rules and do whatever, and they won't. They have
Because it's an agenda.
it's
It's
an
a
agenda.
misogynistic movement. I keep telling everybody it's
Exactly.
misogynistic. These are men who want to be women. I don't care. Think you're a woman. Go right ahead, right on. I'm a woman who thinks I'm a man. It's all good. You walk the world totally normal. If you know who you are and you're cool with it, people love me. No one hates me except the trans community. That being said,
Yeah.
these dudes who think they're women are overriding women's space. That is the definition of
Oh
misogyny.
my god, did you okay, so there was a story on Reddit, I think it made it out into the other socials and stuff like that because 'cause we're in Reddit as American Frontline
Okay,
Nurses,
great, great,
to
great.
combat the misinformation,
Yeah.
and the guy went into a gynecologist and wanted a Pap smear. Well, it was a trans woman that went in and wanted a Pap smear, and the gynecologist is like, well, he had a neo vagina, so like the
But
surgical thing,
still,
but
it's not a
still, you
vagina.
don't have a cervix
That's
for
right.
the Pap smear. And then
That's
here's
right.
my grave concern about this: is that having dealt with the trans females that have had bottom surgery, you
Okay.
have to dilate it all the time, and that in itself can be dangerous if you don't do it and then you do it. The speculum
That's
is
right.
not at the size of your dilator.
That's
Those
right.
scar tissues take over a year to remodel. You can literally dehiss, which means to completely separate the surgical site in there, and your organs will just fall out. You'll bleed to death.
Oh my
And
God.
you want a doctor not trained in, trans bottom surgery to put a speculum
Wow.
in that neo
Just
vagina.
wow.
Okay, like
Wow.
I'm going to tell you right now, as a biological woman, and I was
Yeah.
going through fertility treatments, and they had to go in there and check
Yeah.
everything. They
Yeah.
got the fucking speculum, the plastic speculum, stuck to the side of my vaginal wall. Right? Could you imagine if that was scar tissue from a
No,
neo
that's
vagina that was
right.
made? And I
That's
said,
right.
hey, that vagina is designed to stretch for a baby's head. You just yank that shit out. Because
That's
like they
right.
brought in like 5 people. How are we going to get this out? Because the little like clippy
Yes,
part was
totally.
stuck. The only thing
Oh,
I can equate that to is like if you zip up your scrotum, like in a
yes, in a zipper.
and I'm like, guys, just fucking rip it out.
Rip it out.
Like it's not that big of a piece of flesh. It's designed to heal.
Oh,
But
oh.
could you imagine if that had been done to a
No,
neovagina?
that's right.
Like that
That's right.
wasn't designed to birth a baby. You could
It's
put yourself in a life
fake.
and death situation.
Thank you for saying that. This is what I gotta go back to the agenda. That's the agenda. Why wouldn't they want other trans people to understand if you get a neo vagina, it's not real. You don't go to the gynecologist. That's a fetish. That person was using the gynecologist to
As a
get off.
fetish.
It is. It's a literal fetish. Oh, my vagina. It's not a vagina. Go back to your surgeon who made
Mhm.
that. Ask them. You need to go to somebody who deals with surgical spaces, not
Mhm.
don't take space. There they are again, taking space from it. I go to a gynecologist because I'm a
Well, you
biological
still have a
female.
vagina.
That's right. That's right. And that's the other thing. I keep telling these trans guys, you better go to a gynecologist. I don't care what. You're going to regret it for the
Mhm.
rest of your life if you don't go because the walls dry up. What just
Yeah.
happened to you happened to me when they stuck it in and then the walls are dry and it rips and
Mhm.
it's just so excruciating. Me and you can totally talk about vaginas because I have one and I get
Yeah.
it. But they can't. It's a fake vagina. It's basically a hole. That's all it
Mhm.
is. I
And
mean, I
they've
hate
got
to
to
say it.
dilate it. And then the number of them that don't know how to clean it out properly
Oh
because
my
it isn't
God.
self-cleaning.
Oh my God.
The number of people that end up with like fungal infections
Oh my God.
or bacterial
Can't
infections and
take it.
stuff like that. And I'm like, did your doctor not tell you how to keep it clean and
No,
moisturized
they
in there?
didn't. They didn't.
And I'm just like,
No.
holy crap. So then we're talking with doctors from Mexico, we're talking from doctors in
Yeah.
India. What
Yeah.
are they supposed to be doing? Because the only
Yeah.
thing I can think of is irrigation. Some of
Yeah.
them are just putting bar soap up there. I'm like, I'm like, oh
Oh
no,
my
you can,
God.
I mean, number one, with a biological vagina, you don't put bar soap up there. Like,
That's right.
fucking A.
That's right. Thank
I
you.
mean, and
That's
I'm
right.
just like, and that's like non-moisturizing skin down there. It's not designed to self-clean.
That's
I'm like,
right.
what are we supposed to be telling them how to clean and manage this? Because
Oh my
they're getting
God.
infections
Oh my God.
inside there. They're having discharge.
Oh my
What do we tell these
God.
people? And they're like, and then the Mexican doctors in Mexico, because
Mhm.
it's medical tourism, and the
Right.
doctors in India that do the medical tourism,
That's
they're
right.
like, nobody taught the maintenance. No, they just made a fucking hole, told
And
them
go.
you're a woman and you're gonna be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Woohoo. You got a vagina. Like,
And so we see these complications all the
oh
time,
my
like
God.
all the time. And I'm
Yet
just like, I don't, and there's no research on this, Black.
none.
You can't,
None.
how to clean a neo vagina. You
There's
can't even,
none.
chat can't even answer that for you.
I know. So that's why you're important. And so again, I keep going to say it, the agenda. Why would they want to shut you down? Why would they want to come out for you when you actually care? You are a caring human who cares about these people. Yet there they are telling people not to listen or whatever they're doing to you. That says to me they have some weird agenda, which is, it's more than weird to me. I have to say it because why wouldn't you want other trans people to have health advice so that they
Hmm.
don't run into these problems? And I
Yeah,
think irrigation is exactly how you're supposed to clean it, but they don't even know how to do that.
exactly. And I'm just like, why? Oh, the whole concept, especially in like socialized medicine, like in Canada and the UK,
Sure.
is primary care. So
Yeah.
why aren't we focusing on keeping you out of the ERs by doing primary care interventions, health maintenance, wellness, things like that?
Wow.
What
Just
to
wow.
do to avoid? I mean, we do it in health now. It's like, hey, don't eat a bunch of saturated fat.
Yeah.
Make sure to walk, 30 minutes
Yeah.
a day, 3 times a week for your health.
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. Get your health screenings like a Pap smear and a prostate exam. Blah
Totally.
blah blah. With the trans people, there is no health maintenance, there is
None.
no wellness, there is no prevention.
None.
None.
Zero. Zero. Trans men are really suffering. They really are. When you put
Mhm.
testosterone in your female body, it wreaks havoc on your body. And unless you understand that, then of course you're just gonna, these kids are gonna get what I got, which was a gnarly vaginal atrophy, which means I had to have I got so bad septic that they had to do a full-blown hysterectomy on me. And that just totally put my hormones out of whack. And again, back in the day, there's no Google. I couldn't research. I had to figure it out by talking to menopausal women. That's how I figured it out on my own. And it's just bizarre to me that it's still happening today. They're not giving, here, just take some testosterone, 16-year-old. This is a 16-year-old girl who's putting testosterone in her body. And you don't think something is going to just go so wrong. What about puberty blockers? Imagine they're giving this to little kids.
The Lupron and stuff like that. And I'm just like,
I'm like, this isn't happening. But it is. You got Lupron is the most insane drug ever.
I was actually on Lupron for fertility treatments and stuff like that. That drug is gnarly.
It's gnarly.
And the worst part is that, like, with these kids, they have the parents so freaked out that their kids are just going to go and unalive themselves.
That's right.
And I'm like, so they need this surgery. And I said, well, have you tried cleaning up the diet? Have you tried developing meaningful relationships? Have you tried therapy with, that type of thing? Because there's an underlying issue, not just the trans issue. There's some other type of underlying issue that needs to be resolved with them or to be worked on.
Yes.
Like, because these are caring parents. These aren't like abusive parents that because they're paying for therapy, they're paying for all this stuff, a lot of times out of pocket. Deductible hasn't been met. And and here's something really crazy, Buck, is that they have this phrase, would you rather have a boy or a dead daughter? Like, I can't remember the exact phrase.
That's it.
Yeah. It's parroted everywhere.
It's disgusting.
Like, as somebody with a degree in marketing, I'm like, that's a slogan.
It's a slogan.
That's a slogan.
It's manipulation. I'm a parent too. I have an 11-year-old and I'm adopting another kid right now. And it's disgusting that they would ever say that. Remember, I grew up in the 60s, okay? Born 1962. My parents struggled with me. I was all over the place, but I was just a tomboy. They let me be that. They let me be Buck. I got to be a cowboy. I got to be all kinds of stuff. Of course, sometimes I have to put the dress on when we go to church or whatever. But, whatever. I dealt with that. I made it. Look at me. That being said, of course, at 16, I'm struggling. I went through a whole bad space and my parents were struggling, my poor parents. They didn't know what to do. There were no answers, but they never, ever said to my parents, you have to transition this. My parents today, I have a great relationship with them, by the way. They said to me, we would have never given you puberty blockers, no matter what. And I thought, how interesting that my parents saw me struggle. They got me therapy. They got me as many things as they could get. But they even see today, they're like, what is happening? That this is not right. This is my parents, who literally have a transsexual son, whatever you want to call me, are just like seeing it from their old 85-year-old eyes going, I know you exist, but what they're doing to these children is complete and pure insanity. And that's what people need to hear. It's not that people don't want us to transition. This is an adult only space. I would not be this person that I am today if I transitioned at 12 or 13. I would not. I might even ended up, unaliving myself or hating my parents, because those kids are going to grow up on some level hating their parents for making that choice. That is irreversible, right? You lose your sexual space with Lupron. You lose all kinds of. How can you do that to a child without understanding the long-term effects?
Yeah, and that's like something that's really interesting too. Is who is listening to a 10-year-old about? Okay, I have a 4 and 5-year-old, and if I just agreed with what they said, they'd be eating chicken nuggets and pizza every day and ice cream for breakfast, and they wouldn't be brushing their teeth twice a day.
Totally.
They'd be watching YouTube videos on repeat of God knows what. If I was not the parent.
That's right. That's right. I know. I have an 11-year-old, and don't even try it. Like, sit down, dude. I'm in charge. You don't get to tell me what.
I'll dialogue with my kids and stuff like that, and give them 2 good choices to pick from and stuff like that. But children, they don't.
They need guidance.
They need guidance. They don't need to be thrown into adult decision making. I mean, we don't let children do taxes. We don't let 10-year-olds go fight wars.
That's right.
We have child labor laws to protect them from exploitation.
That's right.
But we have nothing to protect them from this type of psychosis.
It's a mental disorder. I don't care what anybody says. I have a mental disorder. Don't you dare take away my diagnosis from me. It helped me. Do you know when you get diagnosed, as a medical
Mhm.
professional, when you get a diagnosis, let's say you have something like diabetes and you're not feeling good and you're always down and out, and you go to the doctor and you're like, boom, I have diabetes. Oh my
Then it's like,
God.
hey, I know what to do.
That's right. That's right. So if you're not diagnosing these kids, who basically majority of them all have some comorbidity, they're all autistic, or they have, and that's the
Mhm.
other thing. What's this link between autism and trans, which is a bunch of crap as far as I'm concerned. These kids are not,
I mean, maybe they are autistic, but
but that doesn't mean you're trans. They're now
yeah,
connecting. When you tell a kid that, they're like, I'm autistic. Okay, great. You're autistic. Let's figure it
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Doesn't mean you're trans. But these young people are saying, because people are saying, oh, you're autistic, that's why you're trans. That's not why you're trans. That's a whole other thing.
There's a whole lot of children that are autistic, and for whatever the reasons are, that's a whole
Yeah,
different
that's a whole,
podcast episode.
totally,
But
totally,
I don't think it's correlation causation. I think it's just a statistical prevalence
totally.
because there are so many autistic children now. So statistically speaking, there's
Excellent.
now a lot of trans kids.
Yes.
I mean, and
Yes.
here's the thing, Buck, too, is like, being trained in graduate statistics, and I'm like, well, why don't we just, run the stats and find
Yeah.
the row hypothesis, the row
Yeah.
coefficient, and that would tell us if it was correlation or causation.
Why? Why are
Why
they
don't
not
we
doing
just do
that?
the math? I'm like, it's math. Let's just do
That's
the
right.
math.
That's
Nobody
right.
wants to do the math. That's another scary thing, is
Agenda.
nobody wants to do the research that says otherwise, that this narrative is not correct.
That's the agenda I keep talking to you about. I don't know if you all know, or about the thing called the CAS report, CASS. If not, you need to read it, and I can send you the link. The
Mhm.
CAS report, and then the WPATH files. WPATH is the World Psychological Association of Transgender Health. Once they added Unix, they added Unix under WPATH as trans. I'm like, I'm out of here. That
I know
Unix is a
that's a whole
fetish.
different thing. Yeah, they
That's
want,
a
and we've
fetish.
dealt with, yeah, we deal with the Unix as well, because sometimes their surgeries don't go according to plan too, when their epididymis is still sticking
Oh,
out and
they're
stuff.
doing
And I'm
those
just like,
surgeries.
yeah, and I'm like, you
What is
can't just go to
happening?
any surgery to become a eunuch, bro. You got to go to a special. You got to go
That's
to
right.
like a special surgeon for this, not a cosmetic surgeon. I'm like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I really need to start getting some photo releases. But I'm like, that's your epididymis hanging out of
Oh
that surgical
God,
thing. Don't
that is
pull on that. You need
sick.
to go back. Yeah, and they try to make the eunuchs as trans too, and I'm like, no, those people
Nope,
legitimately, they like having a penis. They don't want the
that's right.
testes.
That's right.
That's a
They're
that's a
doing
whole
the
different
surgery.
thing.
No, they actually have something now called nullification surgery. This is how I know it's taken it to the next level. It's in Portland, Oregon, I think, at the whatever the Oregon University is there. And there's a
Mhm.
famous surgeon now who does what's called nullification surgery, so that you don't have a penis or a vagina. And they close everything up, and then they take your breasts off and don't give you nipples. And I'm like, what's happening? They're making people into these, like, basically like cyborg robots. And I'm like,
Okay, so wait, how are they urinating if they're taking everything?
that's what I said. I have no idea. They must make a tube or something that it's just maybe poking out of it. I have no idea, and I don't even want to know, because that is not something
Yeah, because
I.
I've never seen that. I mean, I've seen complications from the neo vagina, and
Oh
they
no,
literally
I'll
went and
send
made
you.
a vagina, and
I'll
then
send you the
an actual
link.
neo penis. They physically made a penis, not
No, they
the.
make it like what they call a Barbie bump.
I was just gonna say that, like a
Yeah,
Barbie doll,
yeah, like a Barbie doll. That's exactly right.
but you have urinary tract shit going on down there. You can't.
Totally,
I mean, you can
totally.
remove the uterus, cervix, the ovaries, but one of the hugest complications is the urinary tract system.
That's right. Trans men deal with urinary tract infections all the time because
Mhm,
of the things that growth down there, and then bacteria gets in. I don't know
mhm,
how graphic I can be here, but the clitoris
mhm.
grows. It's a medical term. I'm like, see how I am, because now everyone's gotten so
I
weird
know
on
everyone wants
YouTube.
cancel over, like, I mean, shit,
Vagina.
they're
Oh my
canceled
god.
over diarrhea.
Diarrhea. Oh my god.
It's so
What world
ridiculous.
do we live in? I'm not. But the clitoris grows very large from the testosterone injections, right? So it does sort of look like a little bit of a baby penis. It's quite
Yeah,
fascinating.
micro penis. Oh
A
my god, I
micro
should show you
penis.
the pic.
Oh, it's crazy. But anyway, what happens is that it becomes a foreskin. And
Yeah.
because we're not taught that, right? So underneath that foreskin is stuff that gets down there if you don't clean it. And all of
Mhm.
these young kids who are taking testosterone are like, It smells. I'm like, dude, you literally have a foreskin. You have to
You got to
no.
clean it.
Oh, no one told me that. I go, that's dangerous. That's you could get an infection. That's why I think that's why. I'm not sure, you would know better. Maybe that's why they're all getting UTIs.
Mm-hmm.
So you
I
see, there's no
yeah. Oh, there
cleanliness,
was
none of it.
another issue too. Oh my god. So I take screenshots of what we find on Reddit because it's like, hey guys, there's real proof, and we're not shaming them. It's like, here's the
Yeah,
the
of course.
legitimate question
Of
from the
course.
person.
Yeah.
We had somebody like that. They were a female transitioning to male,
Uh-huh.
and the clitoris does enlarge it
Yes,
like a micro penis. So it's like
that's right.
maybe about as big as your pinky.
Yeah.
And they were wrapping a rubber band around it to get it to like,
Erection.
yeah, like a cock
That's right.
type thing, and those are dangerous into themselves.
That's right. They are.
And to do the same thing, and
Yes.
they couldn't figure out why it was turning color. I'm like, you I said, holy, and you have to put it into, so you can't over medicalize it. Like you gotta, it's like when you
That's right.
wrap a rubber band around your finger, and if you
That's right.
forget about it,
That's
you
right.
can kill the tissue because it didn't get oxygenated blood.
There
You
you
got
go.
to go to the ER right now
Oh my
because
God.
that is going to turn into
Disgusting.
as a massive
Oh
infection
my God. I'm so
right
sick
now.
right now.
And the worst part is I had the screenshots on my phone, like on my desktop. And for my university, I'm going into a proctored exam with this nice little girl from Utah who's probably Mormon. And she's like, okay, we need to see your desktop. We need to close all your things. And there's just this fucking penis pictures, vagina pictures, eunuch pictures. And I'm
Hilarious.
like, I'm not weird. I promise you, we work with the LGBTQ people, and I'm a nurse. Please don't report me.
Report me. Yeah, right. Where did you get these pictures? No, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you know, my background is in the sexual space, and I did
Mhm.
create products for trans men early on. The reason I did that is because I don't have the penis surgery, and I never wanted the penis surgery
Mhm.
because it doesn't work. And I'm like, why would I
Mhm.
do that? I mean, you can use different kinds of
Other
projects.
things.
You can use all kinds of things. And I'm like, what? So I always advocated for not doing that surgery. And then I eventually created a product that wasn't on the market. I was the first guy to create this. And it basically helped guys sort of, it's a masturbation product. So you don't have to touch yourself because a lot of them have dysphoria around touching. And it
Mhm.
just blew up and it became a sort of medical device as well to help encourage guys. You can live with this. It's
Yeah.
perfectly
You
fine.
don't need to go get that surgery and get
That
those
surgery is
messages,
insane.
which is
Insane.
incredibly dangerous.
Totally.
Did you read the article that came out? They tried to resect part of the colon to make,
Yes.
yeah. And I'm just like,
Yes.
and the only rationale I can think of is
Yes.
because maybe the mucous membranes are a little bit more
Maybe.
durable. Like
Maybe.
they're
Yeah.
also self-cleaning. I don't
That's
know. I'm
right.
like,
That's right.
but I'm like, we also deal with colostomies and things like that. There's a lot
Yes.
of care that goes involved in that. You can't just make it a tube and work with it. Like,
It's so my friend, I don't know his name. I should get you on your show because he's such a great guy. He's a female to male like me, and then he got the penis surgery, and the guy screwed it up so bad.
Mm.
5 dudes he did it to. He screwed them all up. They have to take a tendon out of your arm,
Yeah.
and it's insane what they did, and rip all the skin off, and they mold it into a penis, and then he got gangrene, and then now
Mhm.
he's so sick from it, he's basically dying because of it, because he has infection after infection after
Mhm.
infection. And this guy lost his license in California, went to Texas and opened another clinic and is doing the same surgeries again. And all that, it's the most bizarre thing ever to me. It's not a penis. It doesn't work like a man's penis. And they're giving these kids this idea that you can get a penis when you're not getting a penis. And there's a lot of infections involved and a lot of
Mhm.
care and a lot of money.
Yeah, because this is what happened with that kid. I think it was like it was a girl wanting to be a boy, so a
Mm-hmm.
trans male, and they
Yep.
took the graft from the forearm. So they
That's
took
right.
like like that. They also took a
Yep.
piece of muscle from the chest, and they
Oh,
took skin grafts from the thighs.
yep. That's right.
And I mean, the graft, the neopenis failed. And here's the worst part is that the graft to the forearm, like right here where they take it, the
Yep.
circumference wrap,
Yep.
at the wrist.
Yep.
Like when I showed up to the house they're like, hey, we don't know what to do. Somebody gave us your number. And I'm like, holy
My God.
shit here. Like, and I'm like, you could see there, the tendons were just exposed. The graft had failed. And I'm like, well, first things first, we got to keep this moist and we got to
What?
fly you out of here. We got an ER to a flight to somewhere
See,
that can surgically graft this. And, and it
disgusting.
was multiple failed grafts. Like they had
Oh my
tried
God.
multiple times. They took
Wow.
grafts off the back, off
Oh,
the thighs, off the buttocks.
not
And I'm
okay.
like, how many corrective surgeries have you done? They went through like 3 or 4.
Yep,
And
that's
I'm
right.
just like, so
Yeah.
ultimately they lost the arm like from
Wow.
the elbow down,
Wow.
because the tendons ruptured because they dried out and everything like that.
Wow.
Because they took him to a hand surgeon. I want to say it was at Stanford, but don't quote me on
Disgusting.
that. And
Well,
ultimately, the child, who's probably like 18, 19
yeah,
now,
yeah.
has urostomies. And for those of you who don't know what urostomies are, it's like a colostomy where it's the bag that's attached to your abdomen and you'll defecate into that rather than your rectum. So instead of urinating through your urethra,
Yep.
through your vagina or penis, you
Yeah.
urinate into these little bags attached to the back of your back, and you have to empty them all the time.
Yeah.
You no longer have this, doesn't have a bladder. The person doesn't have a
That's
bladder
right.
anymore,
That's right.
because of the infections. And so they got, like you said, the Barbie doll bump. Like that's what they got now. And now they urinate into, they have no bladder. So just the ureters from the kidneys go right to these bags.
All
And the
because
constant, that was the only thing that they could do, was to scrape everything off, close it up, heal it up. And then they were on antibiotics, IV antibiotics in the home for months and months and months as everything
imagine.
like healed. And they took all the prime grafting tissue too off the backs and the thighs. So they had to go for the abdomen and the chest too, to fix all that into the Barbie bump.
I mean,
And
I
people,
don't.
and they don't tell people these stories.
No,
They
of
don't tell
course
people
not.
these
The
stories.
community is not honest to these people because of the agenda. They don't want people to know that, but they'd rather have I wonder if it's the same guy. I know a guy, and he became very vocal about it, and he started talking about it and showing his recovery and telling people, please don't get the penis surgery. But there's groups on Reddit of guys
Mm-hmm.
getting the penis surgery or wanting it. I'm like, why would you want it? It's not a penis, and also you're skinned up all over your body.
Yeah, so you're definitely not going to pass as a man with the skin graft exposing. You're not going to be
No,
able, and that's like another thing too, is it's not a functioning penis. Sometimes you can urinate through it, but
that's right.
you don't have the ability to start or stop your urine. A lot of times it just dribbles,
Yes.
so you have to wear an incontinence pad. That was another issue. And see, when I worked at the VA, there were soldiers that would have back injuries and stuff like
Sure.
that. You could get a penile implant.
Okay,
Now they're
right.
Bluetooth. Before they used to be a pump or something like
Right,
that.
right.
They can't even give you that as a, with the neophallus.
Yeah,
You don't
right.
even, so it's just like a lump, like just a
It's a
piece of
thing.
flesh hanging there.
That's right.
And I'm
It's a
like,
thing.
you
Doesn't
risked
make
your life for
sense.
this. It's not functional. You can't,
Because
and
they're
now you
being
have to wear an
told.
adult diaper.
No, it's so insane. They don't know it because they're being told to be a man, you need a penis. And that was always my sort of my own space, was to say, you don't necessarily need a penis. You can present as a man. That's a
Mhm.
more personal space when you become, intimate with people, but you should still be honest. I've always been honest. If I met a woman or
Yeah.
whatever, I was always like, well, hold up here. I used to be a woman.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
present male. I don't have male anatomy. That always just made everything be so great, because people would be like, oh, they would never be weird about it, because I was always coming to it honestly.
Buck, have you seen those TikToks where the transgendered females are catfishing the men? And, oh, I haven't, told him yet
No,
that
I
I'm a
hate it.
man.
I
Like, why
hate
would
it
you do that?
because you're an idiot. Basically,
It,
you're an idiot.
it's like the people who maybe have herpes or have HIV and they don't tell
HIV.
their
That's right.
partner.
Nope,
Like, I
not cool.
feel
Nope, you
it's
can't do
just
that.
so disrespectful.
It's called disclosure. And I grew up in the AIDS. Remember, I'm
Exactly.
62. I lost almost all my friends to AIDS. Okay.
Yeah.
Nope. I am totally adamant to disclosure. And it relates specifically to me as well. I present as a man. If I made a chick and she's like, oh, dude, that would be so rude for me to pull my pants down or whatever we're going to do, and nothing. And like, that's going to traumatize that person if they're not
Hmm.
into it. How
And then,
dare?
you know what? That also makes them think negatively about trans people too. So
That's
you're not
right.
helping the community
No,
at
you're
all.
not. You are not. It's a selfish community now, and they only care about themselves. And also, they're doing that to trick guys so that they can say they're transphobic, because everyone's transphobic, including me. And so,
Some people don't want to have sex with another man. It's like, I
no,
don't
it's a
want to have sex
man.
with women. Like,
That's right.
I'm
It's
strictly a
the
dick person, is what I like to tell people.
That's exactly right. And you have every right. That's your sexual preference. And
Right?
so exactly. And that's what I keep saying to people. When you're trans people, you don't get everything you want. That's the other
Mhm.
thing people need to understand. When I made this choice, doesn't mean that the world has to bend over for me. It means I need to bend over and try to figure out how to walk in the world. That's why I walk at the world so great, because I
Mhm.
understand I don't get to have everything I want. And sometimes the things I got before, I'm not going to get now. But this was more important to me. But now these
Mhm.
new trends are like, I'm trans, and if you don't let me play sports and I don't get to use the women's room and you don't have sex with me, you're transphobic. In what world do you people live in? It's so insane.
Yeah, it's just it's like narcissism on
Yes.
top of it.
100% friend. It totally is. It's so frustrating because all I ever wanted was people to see us and be like, "You're cool, dude. You can sit
Yeah,
at the table
right?
with us. Yeah, no big deal." And then we don't talk about it. We never. You think I walk around the world talking about me being trans? No, people know it. We sit at the table. We're done, and it's never part of the conversation
You know,
ever.
that's like another thing too, is that it is the entirety of the identity and it engrosses their
That's
entire life.
right.
They have to
That's right.
engage everyone in their transism.
That's
And
right.
I'm just like, hey, we're just like watching, it's like you're just watching a movie. Oh, by the way, did you know I'm trans? You blah blah. It's their
That's right.
entire identity.
Yep. Yep.
And there is nothing else about them that exists other than
That's
that.
right.
It's like being a vegan.
I know. No, you're so right. There's a lot of similarities there. Like, I don't care if you're a vegan, figure it out. We're going to this restaurant. If you
Figure
can't
it
eat,
out.
that's your problem. It's not mine. It's like being
Mhm.
trans. I can go to the men's room. No one cares. I'm not a threat or anything. I just walk in, I do my business, I walk out, right? Now, all of
Mhm.
a sudden, people are complaining about me using the men's room because I'm a female. I'm like, come on, man. I make an effort. Nobody cares. Like, no one's cared for 30 years. Now, all of a sudden, all everybody cares is because of those dudes who are walking in the women's room taking
And
pictures of
making
their penis. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's
It's
like a
it's
I mean,
so
seriously.
depressing. It's depressing. It
I
really.
know. So, Buck, tell everyone, I'm going to bring up your socials. Tell
Thank you,
everyone
friend.
how they can get a hold of you, follow you,
Great.
and that way
Thank
they
you.
know that there are normal trans people out there in this world.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Yeah, Buck Angel, my YouTube channel, which is Buck Angel Official. I hope you all go there. I have a ton of great interviews with people. I call out the community on there, and soon I'll have Nicole on, which will be great. I'm going to just platform you big time. There, you can go to buckangel.com, which is my website. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, all under Buck Angel. I'm actually on TikTok, which I hate, but I'm
But you
there
got
for
to
a
use
reason.
it. You
I
got to
have
use
to.
it.
I'm reaching the kids.
Reaching the
I'm there for the
kids.
kids. I'm just there to be trampa. If you need somebody who's more solid, I always tell them, just get out and play. Stop being in front of these stupid machine. Why aren't you going and playing soccer or like get a hobby? Seriously. But that's it. I do appreciate you, Nicole, and I really do appreciate your whole business and American frontline nurses, and what you're doing is helping so many people. And I'm going to get you connected to a lot of people who will appreciate you.
Yeah,
And
let's do that because
I
the more people we
apologize.
can help, the more we can
Yes, you
keep
can.
out of the ER and
Are you
having these
kidding?
septic things.
I mean, I just want to say that I'm really sad that people did things and said things about you which are not true. And it just shows to me that you need to be more in the forefront of this fight and be seen bigger, because you're going to
Yeah,
save some
I
kids.
almost I almost just like my husband's like, "Why are you doing this?" Like, let someone else
That's
do
right.
it. And I'm just like, the third time the police are at my house for the week,
Oh,
and I'm
God.
just like, I'm collecting the policemen's business cards like
Sick.
they're fucking Pokemon cards. He's like, my husband's just like, "Why don't
Disgusting.
you just stop?" And I'm like you said, if I save just one life, that
That's why I
means the
love you.
world to everybody in that
That's right.
person's life.
That's right.
So, I mean, so that's why we do it, Buck. Yeah, so let's get
Thank you.
connected and let's get these people the help that they need so they get, safe,
Excellent.
equitable, and appropriate care. So,
Excellent.
all
Thank you,
right,
friend.
folks. Bye. Till next time.